Okay, so I think the last thing I was saying was that the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical trolls are like the worst trolls ever. They're worse than the leftist political trolls. They're worse than, they're pretty bad, right? They'll come after your family. They'll come after your special needs kids. And I have a friend who's a scientific researcher, and she's well known in the I guess the anti-vaccine or health freedom community. And she was talking about her son. I mentioned this in a couple of videos the other day. Her son, it was on, she was on the freeway, and her son had a meltdown and tried to get out of the freeway, get out of the car when he was on the freeway. And these trolls that stalk her all the time, by the way, right? They just stalk her page, harass her and her family all the time. And, you know, they're calling her a cunt and a bitch and a whore, telling her to vaccinate her kids. And even at that time, she wasn't even, like, talking about vaccines. She was just talking about her son that's brain damaged. So, I mean, yeah, these people are horrible, right? Pro-vax logic, right? You can't say anything about vaccines being bad because you're not a scientist. But I, who am also not a scientist, can tell you that they're good, right? So all of you guys that think, you know, that you are, you know, like you believe in science, that like that's your religion, you're an atheist and stuff. And I get the fact that people, you know, are shady with religions, right? It's not just religion, it's any ideology that you have that you can use to hold yourself above other people and make you, you know, look down on other people. And the fact that you're so closed-minded that you're not open to anything else than the dogma that you've been trained to follow. So that can come in the form of religion, that can come in the form of an ideology or methodology such as science. And people talk about science like it's a person, like science says. Like my friend Liam, he has this great video talking about science as like it's a person. And it's like, I'm so glad he made that because it's true. They're like, science says, like science is not a fucking person, all right? It's a methodology, but they're people that they just think because, you know, they're people in white lab coats and they're doctors and stuff that they're benevolent. They never will take money, that there's no such thing as corruptions. They look at these people like people look at priests and nuns, right, as being like holier than thou, but they look at people in science and doctors like that, like they're not doctors that have misdiagnosed their patients in order to get money off them. Like, get the fuck out of here, right? And this guy, I'm gonna clown this dude in the comments because he's dumb as fuck. He was just like, isn't it a coincidence that this bill passed as soon as like the medieval diseases started to come back? I'm like, what medieval diseases? You mean like the plague? Don't you know that there were no, like, vaccines weren't even invented yet? So when the plague like died out, right? It was died out, not because of vaccines. So what, like measles is a medieval disease? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you really that dumb? Like, I hope for your sake, I hope that you're like under 18. I really do. Like, if you're a grown-ass man or woman that made that comment, you are brainwashed, right? Like, sounds like, you know, you have such a strong opinion about this stuff, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sounds like brainwashing, right? Not like science, right? Sounds like religious zealotry, right? Not science, because you would know that there have been no long-term studies on the vaccine schedule, right? You would know that if you read the inserts, they would say of all vaccines that they're not tested for carcinogenesis. That means the ability to cause cancer. Mutagenesis, the ability to mutate your genes or the ability to impair fertility. Meanwhile, while like real scientists that care about people that aren't funded by the pharmaceutical industry and corporations that have a vested interest in keeping people sick, right? They have shown that vaccines, in fact, do cause mutagenesis, such as Teresa Deisher, who is actually, she discovered heart stem cells. She's a cellular molecular biologist from Stanford that discovered this. What do they call it? The DNA. I don't want to mess up the name, but it's basically the DNA that is in the aborted fetal cells and in the animal cells that they put in the vaccines is actually integrating into our DNA with dire results. And I was just made aware a few days ago that there is a lecture on the Khan Academy, which is a well-known mainstream scientific institution, for a lesson for 7th graders, talking about how injecting DNA in humans is bad. It's not a good thing. Like, you can eat meat and stuff, but you have your orifices, you have your digestive systems that break it down. But when you're putting it in, like injecting it through a syringe, it actually, your body doesn't excrete it. It actually integrates into your DNA, causing a host of autoimmune disorders. Okay, not to mention all of the chemicals that are in the vaccines. That's just one problem. There's many problems with the vaccine itself. Okay, so you have that, right? Jeff Bradstreet, who was actually a doctor that was doing research, and he was actually a doctor that vaccinated his child, and his child got autism. Oh, imagine that. I know, isn't it hard to believe that doctors and scientists can be parents at the same time? But some of you guys don't seem to get that, right? You don't get that doctors and scientists have children, and you think like the only doctor that has even questioned vaccines is Andrew Wakefield. Boy, are you wrong. So Bradstreet, who was a doctor, who was actually making headway on his progress. His son had a severe case of autism too. He was the type of kid that like smeared feces, shit all over the walls, would bang his head up against the wall, was nonverbal, and by the time he finished treating him, he was verbal. He actually graduated from high school. He graduated at like 21, something like that, from high school. And I mean, and that's a huge improvement. I wouldn't say that he's totally normal, but I mean, from like banging your head and smearing shit on the walls and not talking into actually being able to graduate high school, even though he graduated late, you know, that's a huge progress. So he was doing this work, he was making headway, he had a lot of parents and support of other doctors and scientists. The higher ups found out, murdered him, and yes, I think he was murdered. His family also thought he was murdered too. They ruled it as a suicide publicly, but his family actually hired a private investigator to show that he was not, or to find, you know, find other evidence, and and they found that he was not murdered. Case in point, he was they stole his research like the day before, and they found him next to a river with a gunshot wound in his chest. Now, if you were a doctor, you would know that if you're going to kill yourself, you would shoot yourself in the head and not the heart. Because what if you miss? It would be an extremely painful way to die. They found scuffle marks on his body. His family said he was a very determined person. Even if they stole his research, he wasn't the type that would kill himself. And another thing that was huge, they found 3 genetic markers in the studies that he was doing with autistic kids. Every single one of them, they found 3 genetic markers. Now, if you are a person, you're only supposed to have 2, one from your mom and one from your dad. Where did the third one come from? Could it be the DNA that we're injecting into ourselves? Yo, but vaccines are safe and effective. Keep believing that, trolls. Keep believing that people that are, you know, religious zealots that bow down to on the altar of vaccines. Keep believing that, because you're believing it. You're not actually doing research, so you're following religion. So you're scientists. You're not scientists. You're not following scientists. You're scientists. You're scientists that have you know, have bowed down and have been captured and raptured by the religion of that science has now become. Right? Sad for you. Sad for you. Go get your vaccines though, because if you believe they're safe and effective, you believe it, right? You believe. The power of belief is very, very powerful. So, I mean, more power to you. Just don't push that shit on me. And this is what this is about. Don't push this shit on me. Don't be like, my vaccines don't work if yours don't, right? And if my vaccines won't work if you don't get vaccinated, right? Don't pull that shit on me, okay? And I know it's really hard for you, because I'm a black woman, I'm a young black woman, that you're like confused as to why I'm not like dancing in a music video or something, and you think that, you know, I've had people be like, you can't understand that. Like, how the fuck do you know what I can and can't understand? Who gave you the right to determine my intellectual capability for reading journals and reading medical, you know, reading medical or looking at medical lectures and stuff like that? You know, I'm capable, all right? And so is everybody else, because this is public information. It's freedom of information. So if you're going to let somebody inject you with something without knowing what's in it and what the cause is or what can happen down the line, you don't think people should be privy to that information? You don't think that we think we should just shut up and let people, like, you know, experiment on us like fucking cattle and human beings? Fuck you, okay? So I guess what I want to say, one more thing. I want to close this out before with something positive. There are good things going on too. I really do believe a lot of people waking up. They're also, I don't know, April, who's the other owner of the channel, she posts a lot of stuff on our Facebook page. So there are states that are knocking down vaccine bills that are taking away exemptions. I know Arizona had one. I can't think of any other states right now. The doctor, I think that I mentioned that they were going after him and trying to get his patients' information. He actually is countersuing them, and they backed down. They backed down off of suing him, but he hasn't backed down off of his lawsuit. So he's exposing them. I think it's actually going to get people to look more into homeschooling, which I think needs to happen anyway. So I know there's somebody in the comments that's like, oh, it's gonna happen. You can't give up, dude. You can't just be like, let them vaccinate. Like, no, dude, you better fucking fight, right? Because your quality of life is gonna determine, you know, how well you can fight. You let them vaccinate you and you get an autoimmune disease and you can't fight for shit, then you're giving into the agenda. That's what they want. They want weak-minded people. They want physically weak people that aren't going to fight back. And when you're in a state of physical illness, you don't even have the mental capacity to think straight. You don't have the physical capacity to do anything. You know, it's really buying into the globalist agenda where they want, it is Agenda 21. It is like, you know, depopulation plan. Yes, I went there. Okay, figure it out. Really? You know, how come, you know, when people are close to curing a lot of these autoimmune diseases, like we have Bradstreet that was murdered, you know, there are a lot of doctors that were getting killed. There's a guy named Stanislaw Brzezinski who's in Texas who's made significant who's cured a shit ton of people from brain cancer using this therapy called anti-neoplaston therapy. Look it up. If you know somebody that has brain cancer, direct them to there. Do not fucking get chemo or radiation. Look it up. Anti-neoplaston therapy. Stanislaw Brzezinski. He's a good Brzezinski. There's a Zabignu who's the evil one, but this guy's a good guy. He has lots and lots of hundreds of patients that always support him, who he's cured, and every day the fucking FDA sues him because they said he doesn't have the right to say that he can cure people. This is some bullshit. So if you think that, you know, the higher ups, the FDA, the CDC, all these motherfuckers, they care about you, they fucking don't. And especially when they have a vested interest in keeping people sick. And we did a podcast, when we had our podcast a few years ago, we interviewed and she was like one of the first one. Her name is Gwen Olson. And she said that she would go into meetings and they would talk about how they wanted to get people addicted to or dependent on at least everybody on the planet, right? Their goal was to get people dependent on at least 2 medications, right? Now there are people that definitely are dependent on more than one medication, but that doesn't sound like that's somebody that's in the business of curing people. It sounds like that's somebody, it's a company that's in the business of keeping people sick and feeding off of them, right? And then you have all these lawsuits from all these pharmaceutical companies where, like, you know, like Vioxx was causing heart attacks and Risperdal was giving boys breast, and, you know, gynecomastia, right? That was giving them breast. And then you have all these lawsuits that you see on TV. Like 1 month there's a new drug and everybody runs out and gets it, and then like the next month they have a class action lawsuit. But they know that they're gonna get sued from all these side effects. And usually the lawsuits are for the diseases or whatever happening is worse than what the drug that the person got was prescribed for. So and CDC has patents on vaccines. Paul Offit, who has a patent on rotavirus vaccine. It's not even like a dangerous disease, right? But he's pushing vaccines. You think he fucking cares about you? You think he cares about vaccines and the health of humanity? Get the fuck out of here. Are you serious? For real? You really think that? Scientins? All right, do what you want. Just don't push it on me. I know how to, like, you know, rev up my immune system without vaccines. I'm good, right? And I'm like, all these like sickly like people that want to like make fun of me because I'm an anti-vaxxer. Well, I think I'm gonna not take health advice from you because you look sick. So why would I take some medical advice from, you know, people that have autoimmune disorders or that, you know, that are morbidly obese? Like Orhag and all these other, like, they don't really look healthy, right? Z-Dog, like, looks like he has cancer, you know? Why? And I swear to God, when I first saw Z-Dog, I was like, the sound was off, and I was like, oh my God, is this a commercial for cancer? Is this like a St. Jude's for adults commercial? I'm like, no, he's like, I'm like, for real, dude? Like, you don't look healthy. Why would I take advice from you? You have jaundice. It's not cute. So anyway, that's my rant. I don't remember what I talked about in the video. If you want any info on vaccines, please visit our Facebook page. We have a ton there. We're always posting stuff there. In the last video that I talked about, that I made, the first part of this video, I put a bunch of links in the description talking about like the herd immunity and the vaccine shedding, and I think I even put like some stuff on the DNA and how it's integrating. Or if I didn't do that, it's somewhere in the comment section. But anyway, all right, guys, love you. Peace through love. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.